bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America.
Vance says he is returning to the United States without a deal after 21 hours of intense negotiations with Iran in Islamabad, as reported from the talks. The US Vice President, as per his remarks, thanked the Pakistani Prime Minister and Army Chief, calling them incredible hosts and acknowledging their efforts to bridge differences between both sides. According to JD Vance, the United States and Iran held substantive discussions, but no agreement was reached as Tehran did not accept Washington's terms. Vance stated that the US made its final and best offer after remaining in constant contact with Donald Trump throughout the 21-hour negotiation process.
And I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
Vance emphasized that the central issue remains Iran's nuclear intent, stating the US requires an affirmative commitment that Tehran will not pursue nuclear weapons or the capability to rapidly develop them. He added that while Iran's enrichment facilities have been destroyed, long-term assurances were still missing from their response.
After we negotiated for 21 hours in private, but the simple fact is that we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon, and they will not seek the tools that would enable them to quickly achieve a nuclear weapon. That is the core goal of the President of the United States, and that's what we've tried to achieve through these negotiations. Again, their nuclear program, such as it is, the enrichment facilities that they had before, they've been destroyed. But the simple question is, do we see a fundamental commitment of will for the Iranians not to develop a nuclear weapon, not just now, not just 2 years from now, but for the long term? We haven't seen that yet. We hope that we will.
The US Vice President said Washington was quite flexible during the talks, but could not reach common ground, stating that Iran refused to accept the proposed framework. He noted that the delegation acted in good faith under instructions from President Trump, but negotiations ultimately failed to make headway.
We talked about all those issues, Jen, and we talked about a number of issues beyond that. And so certainly those things came up. But again, we just could not get to a situation where the Iranians were willing to accept our terms. I think that we were quite flexible.
The talks in Islamabad, involving indirect engagement on issues including the Strait of Hormuz, ended without progress, despite earlier claims of deep negotiations by President Trump. As reported, Washington has now signaled a firm position, leaving the next move dependent on Iran's response to the US proposal.
Yeah, obviously we were talking to the president consistently. I don't know how many times we talked to him, a half dozen times, a dozen times over the past 21 hours. We obviously also talked to Admiral Cooper, to Pete, to Marco, to the entire national security team. We talked to Scott Bessent a number of times. So look, we were constantly in communication with the team because we were negotiating in good faith. And we leave here with a very simple proposal, a method of understanding that is our final and best offer.